welcome to the deep dive. Think about the people you know. You might have a friend in their early 40s who just seems permanently exhausted, right? Moving slowly, thinking slowly.
While their parent, who's maybe pushing 70, is out hiking, starting a new hobby.
Exactly. We are looking squarely at that gap. The gap between your chronological age, the number on your license, and your biological age.
And that gap is really the obsession of modern biology.
So today, we're taking the ultimate shortcut into your sources on the science of longevity, cellular aging, and, well, the surprising molecular regulators that determine exactly how fast you are really running down the clock.
It's a complete paradigm shift. I mean, for decades, aging was just inevitable. Now scientists are actually treating it as a complex biological process.
Or, as your sources say, effectively, a new disease.
A new disease, yeah. It's defined by this gradual, relentless decline of physiological function. And if we can define what drives this disease, then our mission becomes clear. We can aim to delay it, stabilize it, and, increasingly scientists believe we can biologically reverse aspects of it.
Okay, so let's unpack those fundamental drivers then.
Yeah.
Your sources lay out three core sort of destructive forces that are constantly attacking our cells. It's like a triple threat.
It is.
The first one is oxidative stress. Most people have heard of this term, but
Yeah.
at a cellular level, what does this constant rusting actually look like?
It's pretty much the cellular equivalent of corrosion. I mean, our metabolic processes, they naturally produce these unstable molecules. We call them free radicals.
Right.
And when there's an imbalance, too many of those free radicals and not enough antioxidants to neutralize them, they literally start stealing electrons from other molecules. They destroy cell structures, proteins, even DNA. It's a perpetual state of microdamage.
And that microdamage, that must link directly to the second force, inflammation.
It does.
We usually think of inflammation as like a sprained ankle, but in this context, it sounds much more systemic, more insidious.
It is. We call it inflammaging. It's chronic. It's low grade. As those free radicals damage cells, the body triggers an immune response. But instead of fixing the issue, these inflammatory substances just accumulate.
So they're acting like toxins.
Like toxins, yeah. They gunk up the works, they inhibit communication between cells, and they accelerate every other age-related problem.
Okay, and the third force, the one that feels most critical because it affects the actual blueprint, is genetic damage.
Yes. This is where you get changes at the DNA level, actual mutations. But even more subtly, you have what's called epigenetic damage.
So that's not changing the DNA letters themselves.
No, it's not changing the sequence. It's changing how our genes are expressed. Think of it like the volume control on your stereo. Your good genes get turned down, and the bad genes, the ones that might drive diseases, they get switched on.
So those three forces, oxidative stress, inflammation, and genetic damage, they then manifest in 5 critical ways that scientists call the hallmarks of aging. Let's start with one that sounds particularly grim, cellular senescence.
Senescence is fascinating and, yes, a bit grim. It's basically permanent growth arrest. When a cell decides it's too damaged to repair itself or replicate safely, it just stops dividing.
But it doesn't just die off.
That's the problem. These senescent cells, they don't just sit there, they become metabolically active, and they start secreting this cocktail of inflammatory, destructive proteins.
Wait, if this cell is basically dead, why is it actively destructive? It's like a rogue agent still working against the system.
Precisely. They are known as zombie cells. They resist programmed death, apoptosis, and their toxic secretions contribute hugely to that chronic inflammaging we just talked about.
Which makes the next hallmark, DNA damage and epigenetic changes, feel even more urgent. How do those epigenetic changes specifically disrupt function?
It's like you're losing the instruction manual. As we age, the markers that tell a liver cell to be a liver cell and a brain cell to be a brain cell, they get disorganized.
So function gets sloppy.
Very sloppy. And when those good maintenance genes slow down, the whole system starts to destabilize.
And the energy for that whole system comes from the mitochondria.
Yeah.
So the decline of the cell's powerhouse, mitochondrial dysfunction, that must be a critical tipping point.
Absolutely. Mitochondria are the batteries. Their health determines the energy for everything, repair, thought, movement. And this function weakens significantly with age.
Which is why we feel it in our brains first.
Exactly. The brain uses about 20% of our total energy. So this decline is a huge reason why cognitive processing, alertness, it all visibly slows down starting in our late 30s or early 40s.
That's often when people start feeling that mental fog for the first time.
Yep. And then we have the loss of proteostasis, which is just the inability to maintain protein structure. Inflammation is constantly attacking our protein.
And our organs, our muscles, they're all made of protein.
All of them. Your heart, your liver. When we lose proteostasis, we lose integrity. And you can see this. It's directly linked to that age-related decline in muscle volume and strength that kicks in around age 40.
And finally, the system's ability to rebuild stem cell exhaustion just fades.
Right. Stem cells are our regeneration crew. They are highly energy dependent. As mitochondria weaken and the environment gets more toxic from all those zombie cells, the stem cells lose their vitality. They just can't regenerate tissues efficiently anymore.
And here's where it gets really important for you, the listener, because modern life seems to be throwing high-octane fuel on this cellular fire. Let's talk about telomere shortening.
Yes, the caps at the end of our chromosomes, they're a measure of our biological time.
And we are burning through that time faster than ever.
Much faster. Historically, after age 30, the rate of shortening was, a steady 1 to 2% a year. The data now shows that because of modern stress factors, that rate has accelerated to 3 to 5% per year.
Double or triple the speed.
Yeah.
That's huge. Is that mostly driven by stress, or is diet playing the lead role there?
It's synergistic, but stress and diet are huge. Chronic psychological stress produces cortisol, which directly increases oxidative load. And a poor diet creates deficiencies that impact processes like DNA methylation.
Explain methylation quickly.
Methylation is vital for keeping DNA stable and protected. If you're low on, say, B12 or folate, which is really common, it stars that pathway, leaving your DNA vulnerable. We're actively creating this vulnerability.
So that's the internal damage report. Now, what are we doing to ourselves that speeds this up? It sounds like we're just hitting ourselves with a perfect storm of environmental factors.
We are. Consider environmental exposure. We've got more air pollution, more UV, but one of the biggest unseen threats is the rise in endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs.
Where are those coming from?
Heated plastics, non-stick cookware, processed food packaging, they're everywhere. And they mimic or block our hormones, generating massive cellular stress.
And then there's the loss of just the basic elements of health.
Exactly. Lifestyle deficiencies. We spend too much time indoors, so we get less natural light, which hurts our vitamin D3 synthesis. We're also increasingly leading sedentary habits.
Your sources specifically call out screen time.
They do. It accelerates the aging of nerve cells. The brain craves physical movement to get blood flow and clear out toxins, and we're starving it. Studies show just 20 minutes of walking keeps the brain 40% more active than a sedentary life.
40%, that's a massive difference for minimal effort.
It's huge. Combine that with high-stress mental work and poor sleep, and you have a recipe for chronic inflammation.
So what does this all mean for the listener? Let's connect this breakdown to daily life. What are the early warning signs that you're on a fast aging path, maybe starting around 30 or 35?
The most common physical sign is early weight gain and obesity, sometimes starting as early as 25. But importantly, it's often paired with reduced muscle mass sarcopenia and decreased bone density.
So it's not just getting heavier, it's losing your functional mass.
Correct. And there's a very specific, almost anecdotal sign your sources mention called the Sing chair syndrome. The Sing chair syndrome, it's that moment when getting up from a chair, especially a low one, suddenly requires effort. You have to brace yourself or use your arms to push up.
I think we all know that feeling.
If you start struggling with that simple movement early in life, it's a clear marker of systemic weakness, pointing to accelerated decline.
That's a great functional sign we just dismiss. What about metabolic warnings?
Metabolically, you need to watch for insulin resistance and its progression to type 2 diabetes. It's a loud, clear signal that your body is struggling to manage energy at the cellular level. Also, high blood pressure and an unbalanced lipid profile, high bad LDL, low good HDL.
And mentally. The source is called cognitive decline, the Gosney problem. I love that.
It's so relatable, right? The Gosney problem is that sudden mental fog. You forget why you walked into a room or you stall mid-sentence. It's linked directly to that mitochondrial dysfunction.
And it often appears with things like anxiety and depression.
Yes, which are increasingly linked to inflammation in the brain. And we're also seeing earlier hormonal shifts. For men, signs of andropause, reduced testosterone, things like that. For women, premenopausal symptoms starting in their 30s.
So our body's regulatory systems are just under immense stress.
Exactly. It's like the cumulative effect of modern life is overwhelming our maintenance systems, switching off our youth programs years ahead of schedule.
Which brings us to the core mechanism of control,
Mm.
the sirtuin genes.
Yeah.
SIRT genes.
Right. If the cell is a government, sirtuins are the central government. They're a family of enzymes that are, well, they're absolutely essential. They act as the primary and most powerful regulators of lifespan, metabolism, and health span.
And how does this central government manage everything? It sounds like a massive workload.
It is, and they manage it by being multitasking supervisors. They regulate inflammation, they directly enhance DNA repair, for example. RSRT6 is essential for maintaining the length of those telomeres we talked about.
So they keep the whole system stable.
They do. When sirtuins are highly active, the cell is in full-on maintenance and repair mode.
Okay, so if they're the ultimate repair crew, what is their single point of vulnerability?
Their vulnerability is their absolute dependency on a cofactor called NAD nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide.
NAD is the fuel.
It is the required fuel for sirtuins. And the catastrophic issue is that NAD production naturally begins to decline sharply after age 35 to 40.
So the moment we need the maintenance crew the most, their fuel source starts running dry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As NAD levels drop, the sirtuins they can't function. They become deactivated. And this switch off is believed to be the critical trigger for all those age-related diseases.
The goal then is crystal clear.
Yeah.
Activate sirtuins and replenish their fuel. So let's jump into the activation strategies. Where do we start with lifestyle?
We start by mimicking scarcity. So calorie restriction and intermittent fasting, they're highly effective.
Why does that work?
The body interprets fasting as a mild stress, which triggers a survival mechanism. This directly activates SRRT1, shifting the cell from growth mode into repair mode.
I know a lot of people try different fasting methods, but is there a specific timing that's most crucial?
The sources really emphasize that to effectively activate SIRT1, you need to maintain a minimum 14-hour gap between your evening meal and your morning meal.
So even just skipping a late-night snack can make a real difference.
It can start that powerful repair mechanism, yes. And the other non-negotiable is exercise.
And why is exercise a specific sirtuin activator?
Because it activates both SIRT1 and, critically, SIRT3. Remember mitochondrial dysfunction. SIRT3's main job is boosting mitochondrial health. Intense activity demands energy, forcing the cell's powerhouses to get stronger and more numerous.
So we fast and we move to flip the switch. Now, what about molecular support? What compounds are discussed?
On the natural side, things like resveratrol from grapes are known SIRT1 activators. Also curcumin from turmeric and EGCG from green tea. They help by reducing the oxidative stress that sirtuins have to deal with.
But the most direct approach, given that NAD fuel crisis, has to be the precursors, right? Like NMN, nicotinamide mononucleotide. How well does it work?
NMN is favored because it's a direct precursor that easily converts to NAD inside the cell. And the scientific evidence is really growing. Recent human trials, often using just 250 milligrams a day, confirm NMN is safe, non-toxic, and successfully elevates NAD levels.
So it's moving way beyond just a theoretical supplement. What are the tangible effects they're seeing?
The effects circle right back to the hallmarks we identified. NMN effectively mitigates mitochondrial dysfunction, restoring energy. And significantly, by increasing NAD in the brain, it activates SRT3, which scientists think could be really potent in managing neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's.
I noticed the sources mentioned TMG and AKG sometimes being paired with NMN. Why are those necessary if NMN is the direct fuel?
That goes back to the DNA integrity issue. When your body uses NMN to create NAD, it consumes these things called methyl groups, which are vital for that DNA methylation process we talked about.
So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
A little bit, yeah. TMG and AKG act as methyl donors. They make sure that while you're powering up your sirtuins, you aren't accidentally destabilizing your DNA repair systems. It's a much more comprehensive approach.
That makes the solution much more robust. Now, for the final, non-negotiable piece of advice from the sources, diet.
Absolutely vital. All the fasting and exercise in the world will be negated if the destructive forces are running rampant. So the sources are emphatic. You have to strictly avoid sugar, fast food, soda drinks, and high-sugar items.
Because they just counteract everything you're trying to do.
They directly accelerate glycation and inflammation, which is the exact opposite of what the sirtuin genes are trying to achieve. If you're serious about this, you have to remove the accelerants.
So we started with the paradox of biological versus chronological age. We've identified the enemies, oxidative stress, inflammation, genetic damage, and named the commander-in-chief of cellular health, the sirtuin genes, which demand NAD fuel.
The summary is this: longevity and healthy aging. They are not a passive process. They depend on actively forcing the cell into repair mode through the deliberate stress of fasting and exercise, and providing the necessary fuel, like NMN, to keep that central government operating at maximum capacity.
So what does this all mean for you? The most provocative takeaway from your sources is just the revolutionary depth of this understanding. Science now knows enough about DNA methylation and sirtuin activation to state that we can actually, through targeted practices, chemically induce the reprogramming of cellular aging.
The cellular clock is adjustable, the knowledge is here, and the power to choose a long, healthy, and vigorous life is truly in your hands.
Use it wisely. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.